Rise and grind, viewers. My name is Tetsyumi, and welcome back to another Disgaea RPG Should You Summon. And I am very, very happy to be back making some more Disgaea content, and especially a Disgaea RPG Should You Summon video, because if you guys look at the event schedule right here, the month of February is absolutely stacked with new characters that are pretty good, because what we have for this month is going to be the Disgaea RPG X The Witch and the Honored Knight. So this is a collab that's going to be going on all month between, Disgaea and the Witch and the Honored Knight. And because we have this massive month-long collaboration, and there is a ton of new summons and new characters that you could potentially be summoning on, we're going to have to do a fair bit of discernment as to whether or not you actually do want to summon on these characters, because I'm just going to say it right now, some of these characters are absolutely insane, and you should absolutely summon on them the first time they come around. I'm looking at you, what is your name, Ryubence, right here. I'm just going to say it right now, a little bit of spoilers, but Ryubence you definitely want to summon on, she's just insane. But as for the other characters mentioned here, you are going to want to do a little bit of discernment for yourself if you actually do want to summon on them, because there are some good units, but there are some units that, potentially you just might not need in your party right now. But the good news is, I say right now, because these units eventually will make a rerun on Global, similar to how the Lapachel just did their rerun last month, because these characters will be coming back to JP, and when they do, they will be getting buffed. So eventually for Global, they'll be coming back, and they will also be getting buffed for us. So even if you don't summon for any of these characters right now, which I probably would advise against, at least for Ryubence, but you'll see why. But even if you don't summon for any of these guys right now, eventually they will be coming back, which is just great news, because if you miss out on them, or maybe you just don't have the quartz, you can always get them at a later date. But now, with all that out of the way, we can actually go ahead and start talking about some of these characters, because we have quite a few to talk about. So first off, we got Misedor, then we're going to talk about Ryubence, then we're going to talk about Metallia, and then finally we're going to be talking about Brainwashed Majorita. And I'm going to save the last three characters, which is going to be Nizaria, Overlord Metallia, and Witch Laharl, for a later video to come, just because I don't want this video to be super long. So first things first, we can go ahead and talk about Misedor, which will, in all honesty, only take probably a minute. And the reason I say it's probably only going to take a minute is because Misedor is one of those characters where he's a character, but like, he's really not. So basically, Misedor's whole thing is you're really realistically not going to run him on any like PvP team, raid team, support team, anything like that. The one and only purpose you are going to summon and run Misedor is for this skill right down here, his NE+5 ability, which is King's Treasure Chest, because what this does is this is an absolutely insane support ability, but it is only an insane support ability if you're using him in Item World, because what he does is when getting a chest in the Item World, there is a plus 20% chance to drop an additional chest, which is not affected by drop rate, chest bill, whatever. So what this means is if you end up putting this man, Misedor, in your Item World build, then you are going to have a 20% increased drop chance for any chest. So basically, if there's, let's say, an event where it's an increased drop chance for rares and legendaries, if you put this guy in your team, you're going to automatically have a plus 20% chance to drop a chest, and then from that chest, you're going to have an increased drop chance at getting a rare or legendary innocent. So basically, this guy is just going to be super, super helpful if you want to really build up your innocence, build up your weapons, stuff like that. But in all honesty, that's pretty much all this guy's doing. You can see, he has some okay skills. He's doing like, AoE attack lowering, single target defense lowering, stuff like that. You can see his stats up here. They're kind of a mixed bag, but really, you're not getting this character for his stats. Like, if you do, level him up, get him all the way up to 999, get him maybe like, whatever, 9 stars is it? I don't know. Then, he will still be doing pretty good damage. He will definitely easily wipe anything that the Item World throws at you. But realistically, you're not getting him as a tank. You're not getting him as a support. You're getting him just for that sweet 20% increased drop chance so you can farm up those innocents. Real quick before we look at these next three characters, I just want to issue a very quick disclaimer, which is going to be that the stats of these characters are all from the JP side of the wiki here, which basically means that they will probably be a little bit different than the stats on the global release of these characters, so the stats or skills might be just a little bit different. And speaking of skills, for Ryubence here specifically, her first skill here is worded very strangely. So basically all you need to know is that I say the correct information on her skill, the wording is just a little bit weird. So it says here, defense debuffed enemies with additional do not forget effect. Basically what this means is if the enemy is debuffed with defense, they will get the forget effect inflicted on them. And I will say that in the video, it's just a bit confusing if you read it here. But that's all I wanted to say, so back to the video. Alright, and moving on here, we have Ryubence. And Ryubence is a just phenomenal god tier support unit. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, you will more likely than not want to summon on her because she is genuinely just that good. If you are at all familiar with the unit Madoka from the Madoka Magica collab, she is very much similar to that unit, except Ryubence here actually does a little bit more. She's a bit more well-rounded of a character, I would say. She helps your team a little bit more, and she does provide a lot of the same boost that Madoka has, so in a lot of ways, she is just kind of a little bit better version of Madoka, but we'll get to that all later when we actually talk about her after we go through all of her stats. So let's go ahead and do that right now. So first things first, Ryubence here is a humanoid staff knight ally. You can see her stats right here. She is mainly equipped in defense, intelligence, and resistance, going up to well over 20 million on all of these once you get her fully 9-star maxed out. No attributes. 25, 25, 75, 75 for the resistances to poison, paralysis, sleep, and forget. And moving on to her abilities here, we get the first glimpse of why Ryubence is such an insane support character. So starting with her leader skill, we have Pumpkin's Blessing. Party's basic parameters, other than HP, get increased by 16%, which is good, but then also, HP just gets increased by 20% anyway, so not only are you boosting all the basic parameters by 16%, but then 20%'s getting a little extra love, going 4% higher at 20%, which is just great. You love to see that. And at any +1, we get Homemade Pumpkin Pie, which is going to be at the end of turn, base parameters other than HP of an allied character with the lowest speed is going to get plus 35% for 1 turn, and also plus 25% to their crit rate damage for 1 turn. So let's go ahead and break down this ability a little bit more because it's a little bit confusing at first glance. So basically, when she goes, she's going to look at every other character behind her, so basically every other character in your party, and determine which one of those characters has the lowest speed. Now, when it says speed here, I'm not sure if that is just referring to this base speed stat here, or if this is referring to the speed stat with the additional speed bonuses you would potentially be getting from, your armors or weapons that you have on the character. But regardless, it should still provide the same kind of boost, because what it's going to be doing is it's going to be boosting whoever has the lowest speed on your team. It's going to be boosting them by 35% with all the basic parameters, so stuff like attack, int, resistance, and then also increasing their crit rate damage by 25%, which could be helpful depending on the unit, but really, you're going to be looking at this 35% to all the other basic stats. But why this is such a good ability is because you pretty much can choose who you actually want to have this skill always be affecting. Basically, you can choose in your team who you're going to have with the lowest speed, and then you can just build your team around that. And more often than not, the person with the lowest speed on your team is most likely going to be the person that is going to be your main DPS damage dealer. So your hard hitter of the team will probably have the lowest speed stat, and thus, every time she gets a turn, you're automatically going to be boosting that attack damage dealing character by 35%. So you're just giving that person a free 35% attack increase just for being on the team, literally for nothing, as long as you get this any +1 ability. But Ryubence doesn't stop there. Oh no, she wouldn't be an insane god tier support character if she just had the one pretty good ability. She has 2 more abilities that are honestly on par with this one in terms of their helpfulness. So we got her any +5 ability, Mystery Touch, which is going to be at the start of the turn. If the party is at least 50% health, the party is dealt 18% increased damage from special moves for 1 turn, and also the party takes 10% less damage from special moves for 2 turns. So basically, as long as your party is relatively healthy, 50% health, you're going to be dealing more damage and taking less damage. Now again, I'm not sure if this is on an individual character basis or if this is a party as a whole, like they calculate all of the health pool of the party and then, divide that by half to see what it is. But regardless, if you're looking in good shape with your party, then you're definitely going to be feeling the effects of this minus 10% negation from special moves, and also this increase in special move damage by 18%, which is honestly huge. And then lastly, to continue the trend of just absolutely boosting the attack of all of your party, we get her any +7 ability, which is going to be made in Pumpkin. So what this does is the more surviving characters in the party, the more damage the party does with attribute attacks, max up to 20 for the 4 other characters besides Ryubence. What's her name? Ryubence. Her name is Ryubence. I don't know how I forgot that. I've been saying it so much. But basically, this is still a really, really good ability to have, because if you, let's say, have a character like Supreme Girl Laharl on your team, which, if you guys don't remember, she was a damage-based dealer, but she mainly did damage with her water element attacks, so she would kind of boost herself. If she had like a spear, she would give herself more like water damage or something like that. But basically, she's really good for raids, and if you had this ability, you would be, doing more damage with your attribute attacks by up to 20%, which is going to be still really helpful. Now, it might not be as helpful in some situations as, say, just a regular base 35% increase to the attack, but in a lot of situations, this would still be really helpful, because let's say you're doing a raid and your enemy is weak to some one element. Well, there you go. You have this NE7 ability, and now you're going to be doing up to 20% more damage with that one attribute. So there you go. You're going to take the raid down 20% faster, pretty much. That math doesn't exactly check out, but I'm not here for math. I'm here to look at the character. And finally, moving on to Ryubence's skills here, at level 1, we get Pumpkin Panic, which is a massive AoE attack and a massive AoE debuff, lowering the enemy's attack and intelligence by 40 to 45% for 3 turns, crit rate damage by 20% for 3 turns, and if the enemy has a defense debuff, it will also inflict Forget on that enemy, which I cannot tell you how well that would link up with a bunch of other units in this game. Basically, you can get the entire enemy team defense debuffed, and then just whip out this level 1 AoE skill, and bam, the entire enemy team has Forget, which I think works like that. I'm not sure if this would only affect a single target or something like that. Even if it does, this is still really helpful, but like regardless, you're going to be giving Forget to probably somebody, which is going to be super helpful in the midst of battle. At level 200, we get the skill Trick Scream, which is going to be a massive party buff, basically giving everyone in the party a small overshield and also SP recovery every round by 7, so you're going to get 7 more SP every round for 3 turns, and also boosting your crit rate damage by 25% for 3 turns, and your crit rate by 10% for 2 turns. And also, there's this like aroma single and aroma full here, which I don't know what it means. But basically, this skill is really good, and this is pretty much almost exactly the same as the one that Madoka has, where you're going to give yourself a bit of an overshield, which is going to be your health for 3 turns, which is just an absolutely insane skill. But on top of that, you're also, giving yourself a little bit of SP recovery every turn, so maybe that's just going to boost your character a little bit to get that any +3 attack down, something like that. And also crit rate damage and crit rate, again, we love to see it. It's kind of a theme for this character. She's doing a lot of crit rate damage, crit rate kind of stuff, so maybe you want to put her on a crit damage team, something like that, who knows. And then finally, moving on down to her any +3 skill, we get Ryubence's Demon Beast Dictionary, which is going to be a single target attack and also a single target debuff, lowering the enemy's defense and resistance by 45% to 50% for 3 turns, as well as removing enemy buffs, and also, on top of that, still granting the Forget effect. So not only are you getting the Forget effect on her AoE as long as the character is debuffed with defense, but you're going to be lowering their defense with this ability and just inflicting them with Forget again. So big double whammy. You're going to be lowering their defense here and inflicting Forget, and if they're already lowered defense, you can just inflict Forget on them again. And that is going to be Ryubence's character. So if you want to take a look at her magic spells here, she gets a few decent ones, single target attack, lowering the enemy's defense and speed and resistance. You can take a look at her nether enhancements here, and also Herculeus training stuff. But all in all, this is Ryubence, an absolutely phenomenal support unit. Now, I want to say this right now. If you do, in fact, have Madoka as your support unit right now, you possibly would want to consider skipping out on Ryubence this time. I do think in the long term you will want Ryubence over Madoka, because I think Ryubence is just a little bit more well-rounded of a character, performing a little bit more boosts and help to your team than Madoka would be. But if you, spent all out on Madoka, you spent all out maybe on the La Pucelle comeback that just happened last month, you don't quite have the Nether Quartz to summon, it's fine if you skip out Ryubence this time, but again, I would really suggest you summon for her. I'm personally going to be summoning for her. She's just a phenomenal unit all around. So that's what I gotta say. Obviously, you can pick what you want to do. That's just my little 2 cents on it. And next up, we got Metallia, who is going to be primarily a damage dealer with a little bit of extra spice and flair thrown in there. She has a few pretty good stat boosts and also stat debuffs for the enemy characters. So let's go ahead and go over her. So first off, she's going to be a monster physical queen ally. You can see her stats as shown here. So you can see she is mainly going to be an intelligence-based damage dealer, but she does have pretty well-rounded stats all around. You can see that her HP stat and her defense stat are both pretty well equipped at 64 and 18 million a pop, and then her intelligence stat is going to be her technically highest stat if you ignore HP at 22 million, because intelligence is going to be the main stat that she's going to be dealing damage off of. Moving down to her attributes, we can see she has 75% across the board, although realistically, this star one is going to be the only one that actually matters, because if we scroll down a little bit more, we can see that the majority of her skills, which is 1, and then the few of her magic spells are based off the star attribute and nothing else, so we can kind of just ignore the other ones. And that takes us to our abilities. So first things first, her leader skill, which is going to be Witch's Might, is going to be a party attack and intelligence increase of 16%, as well as, again, same as Ryubence, an HP increase of 20%, which, again, pretty good. We love to see HP finally being included in some of these leader skills. Then at any +1, we get Metallia. I think I said that right. And this is going to be all allies if target has a resistance buff at the end of this turn, SP plus 15. So I'm not sure if this is SP plus 15 for the target. I'm also not sure if the target means enemy target or allied target. I assume allied target. But basically, someone's going to be getting an SP increase of 15 if someone has a resistance buff. So that's kind of all you need to know. Moving on to her any +5, we get Nibelhene's Top Witch, which, again, these names are just killing me, but basically, the more surviving members in the party, the more damage the party deals, max up to 20% for 5 characters, and also the more surviving characters in the party, the less party the damage takes, which is max 15% for up to 5 characters. So basically, you're going to be dealing more damage and taking less damage for the more characters that are alive in your party. And then finally, at any +7, we get Swamp Ruler, which is going to be at the start of turn. Defense and resistance is going to be minus 20% for all enemies for 3 turns. On paper, this all seems really good, although one thing is, I don't think that this any +7 ability applies every single time she gets a new turn. I think this is just kind of once at the beginning of the round or whatever, when she actually gets her first turn, then it actually procs. But still, that's going to be a very helpful skill against stuff like raids, stuff like bosses, even PvP if you decide to run her in a PvP team. Having a lower defense and resistance by 20%, very helpful, especially with this any +5 ability, doing more damage and taking less damage. All in all, just very solid ability. I can see that if you run this unit, maybe with Ryubence, together they're doing a lot of damage increases and damage reduction, it seems like, so pretty good so far. And finally, moving on down to her skills, at level 1, we get Metal Justice, which is going to be a single target attack and also a single target debuff. So what this is going to do is lower the attack and intelligence by 25% for 3 turns, lower the speed by 8% for 3 turns, and also inflict poison on the enemy, and lower their action gauge by 100. So very good stuff. I especially like the lower speed here. That's definitely going to help a lot. Lower speed and lower action gauge, pretty nice. Also, a little bit of a theme to this character is she does a lot of stuff with poison. Like you can see, she inflicts poison with all 3 of her abilities here, and even if we go down here into her magic spells, some of them bestow poison again. So I haven't really fiddled around with poison as a debuff much in this game, so I'm really not sure how much of an effect this is going to play, but considering she deals so much poison, I'm thinking maybe the poison damage might stack or something like that, and then you'll just be racking up so much damage every round. But again, not sure. Maybe you guys can let me know that in the comments, but basically, poison's a running theme. Don't know how good poison is, so I guess by that virtue, I don't know exactly how good this unit is as a DPS, but you know what? She's pretty good so far. Next up, at level 200, we get the Twilight Elemental skill, which is going to be a single target attack and also an ally buff boosting your allies' attack and intelligence by 45% for 3 turns, boosting their crit rate by 10% for 2 turns, and boosting the damage dealt by special attacks by 15% for 2 turns, as well as poisoning the enemy once again. And then moving on to NE+3, we get World is Metallia's, which is going to be an AoE attack and also an AoE debuff, lowering the enemy's defense and resistance by 40% for 3 turns, lowering their speed by 10% for 3 turns, and poison effect inflicted to all enemies, and also buff effect removed from a single enemy. So, love to see that. I am honestly very happy that I've been seeing more of this buff effect removed on lots more characters, because having stuff like a buff effect remove on someone like an attack damage dealing character such as Metallia here is gonna be very useful for team building, because this is possibly a decision where you're between putting one support in over another, and having this buff effect removed with this character is just gonna make decisions like that a lot easier, so we love to see it. And then finally, you guys can take a look at her magic spells if you guys want to see that, as well as down here we got her nether enhancements and her Kilia's training. So overall, I do want to say I'm a fan of this unit. However, I will say I'm not sure if she is 100% necessary. I will say this: if you do need a damage dealing character that is not based on the attack stat and rather based off the intelligence stat, then I would say this unit is a pretty good pick. Or maybe if you just want to summon on all the collab characters, you want to put Metallia here with Ryubence, then, you know, go for it. But I don't know if I can necessarily say, yeah, this character is a must summon, just because I don't really think she does anything too drastically different from a lot of the other main DPS damage dealers we have on our, on the game, as well as this poison effect, which I'm just straight up not sure how effective that's really going to be, especially for, more late game content like raids, like level 999 Dark Gate, stuff like that. But maybe you guys can let me know in the comments if you do think this character is worth a bit more of a look at, if you do like her. But that's what I'm going to say. Not a bad character by any means. I'm not going to say for sure someone on her, but she could for sure absolutely help out your party if you do need just an intelligence-based damage dealer. And finally, we have Brainwashed Majorita, which is going to be the last and, in my opinion, probably the worst of the collab characters that we've looked at so far, which is not to say that she's bad by any means. Just in my opinion, I don't think she is quite bringing to the table some of the stuff that the other characters so far have been doing. But, I'll let you guys form your own opinions on that. So, first off, Majorita here is going to be a humanoid fist pawn ally. Her stats are honestly looking surprisingly good. We got A pluses and S's across the board. Easy 20 million for attack and defense, 64 million up here for HP, and 22 million down here for resistance. So surprisingly good for a character that I don't really see having much direction. I mean, I suppose she would be more akin to a support based off her skills and, some of her abilities, rather than an attack dealer, but at the same time, she does have a 20 million attack stat, so it's kind of weird, but basically her stats are looking good. Moving on to her attributes, we can see she has 25% toward fire and water, nothing towards wind, and 50% towards star. Looking at her abilities here, we have Love's True Power as her leader skill, which gives us a party attack and resistance increase of plus 16%, and then continuing the trend, she's giving us also an HP increase of 20%. And looking at her NE+1 ability, this is where this character is a little bit weird, and I'm entirely gonna blame it on the wiki. I'm gonna chalk it all down to some sort of translation error, because in a second we'll read this, but her NE+1 ability, to me at least, just makes absolutely no sense. And on top of that, so does her skill down here, which we will again read in a second. But basically, her NE+1 ability is going to be Necromancer in Love, and see if you can make sense of this at home. At the end of the turn, grants 18% for 1 turn of all damage dealt to characters under the party's defense buff effect. I'll read it one more time. At the end of the turn, grants 18% increase of all damage dealt to the characters under the party's defense buff effect. Now, I'm gonna go out on a limb. What I think this means is I think after your maybe full rotation or after a turn or something, this will give yourself, it will take 18% of the attack that you did to the enemy it'll take 18% of that and convert that into a debuff to put on your party. So basically, the more damage you do to the enemy, the more defense you will gain on your party. That's what I think this means, and if that is in fact what it means, then I can say that this is a very good NE+1 ability. However, because it's worded so just ungodly strange, I really have no idea what it means. So again, maybe you guys can tell me in the comments, but super strangely worded. Then at NE+5, we get Raise Your Little Fists. All damage dealt by the party when you're equipped with a fist weapon, plus 18%. There we go. Very, very easy to translate what this means. It's just, if you have a fist weapon, you get 18% increased damage. Pretty nice. And then at NE+7, we get Love and Recital, which is going to be an all-ally buff. At the start of battle, starting SP is going to be plus 18. So you get in a game, you're going to have automatically, bam, 18% more SP, which is pretty good. Don't know if it's NE+7 ability good, but every little bit of SP helps. And finally, moving on to her skills, at level 1, we get the Weaken Curse, which is going to be an AoE attack as well as an AoE debuff, which is going to be basic parameters other than HP are going to be lowered by 30% for 3 turns, and then this is where, again, I'm confused. Any of the status abnormalities granted. So there we go, I guess. Congratulations, you lower the enemy's basic parameters other than HP by 30%, and also any of the status abnormalities granted. Woohoo, yippee! No idea what that means, but I'm just going to take it at face value, which is just going to be this. So basically, you're lowering everyone's basic parameters by 30%. Pretty good for a level 1 AoE skill. Moving on to her level 200 skill, which is going to be Tomb Crisis, we get another AoE attack, but this time it's going to be a party buff as well, increasing the party's attack and intelligence by 20% for 3 turns, as well as increasing the crit rate damage by 25% for 3 turns, as well as, again, increasing the SP recovery by 7 for 3 turns, which, again, is going to be just a really good skill. Love it when people have this. This is very similar to Ryubence. I forgot her name again. The character you should summon on, the good support. Very similar to her level 200 skill, except instead of increasing the attack and intelligence, she is going to be giving us some sort of overshield, which is very good. And then finally, at NE+3, we get Fancy Healing, which is just going to be a basic party buff, which is going to be a small HP recovery, also removing debuffs, and also granting the party minus 15% damage taken for 2 turns, which a really good skill. Honestly, very happy with that. And yet again, here's going to be all her magic spells. If you do want to get any of these up, you could potentially be increasing your party's attack by 20 to 30%, or maybe their intelligence, something like that. And likewise, here's going to be the Nether enhancements, and here is Kilia's training. So I want to preface this again by saying I don't think that Brainwashed Majorita is necessarily a bad unit at all. I mean, just looking at her stats and even some of the effects that she does with her skills, other than the ones that we just straight up don't know what they do. Other than that, you know, she's for sure going to be a very good unit. I just think in comparison to some of these other units like Ryubence here and like Metallia, she just kind of falls a little bit flat for me. So for that reason, I would not personally recommend you summon for her. However, if you do pull her, maybe summoning for a different character, I don't think it's the end of the world at all. I do think she could be useful in your team, you know, given certain circumstances. But that is going to be where I call this video an end. Usually at the end of these videos, I put these characters on a tier list. However, currently, I am working on redoing my entire tier list and also adding a lot of the characters that I didn't get to add. So I will not be putting them on the tier list. I'll just be saying, probably skip Majorita. I mean, you can summon on Misedor, just be mindful of your quartz. Misedor, again, if you guys forgot, not really a damage dealer, not really a support. Basically, the only thing you're summoning on him for is going to be his NE+5 ability, which is going to be the 20% increased chest drop chance for Item World. Ryubence here, summon 100%. She is super, super worth it. Amazing support. And then we got Metallia here, which not bad at all. I think she is a very potentially amazing intelligence attack dealer, but you know, possibly you don't really need her on your team if you're not running any sort of intelligence-based DPS teams, but she is still very good. If you do want to summon on her, I would say go for it, but yeah, it's up to you. But that is going to be it for this video, so please like the video if you like it, subscribe if you really liked it. Thanks for watching. Sorry if it was a bit long, but hopefully it was just a little bit shorter than usual because I cut out the last few characters that we will cover in another separate video. And let me know, again, if you guys have any comments, if you want to talk about the characters a little more, if you think I made a huge mistake or something, let me know in the comments. And again, that's going to be it. So like, subscribe, do all that stuff, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.